Hi, and welcome to AP Psychology. My name is Amanda Rollman-Hogel, and I wanted to take this opportunity to speak to you, the parents, directly, because I know often at the beginning of the school year you are flooded with so many different papers and things that you need to sign, and I found that this is a little bit more beneficial for parents to be able to put a name to a face, and also to be able to access certain links so that way they can continue to watch their students' progress with me as we move through the year. I have to start this out by sharing that I am currently on maternity leave with my first child, so I won't be in the classroom with your student until November. However, my substitute, Grace Vandegrift, is there with them, and she's going to do a phenomenal job, and we will definitely make sure that your student is going to be prepared and ready to go for the AP exam in May. So I wanted to start this out by looking at the syllabus and just pointing out a few main things for parents that I know that they often have questions on. In order to be able to get in contact with me, you can email me. That would certainly be the easiest way for you to get a hold of me, since I'm not in the building at the present moment. I do try to keep up on my email. I can't guarantee that it will be a quick response. However, if you have immediate concerns, you should be sure to email Grace, and her information is also being sent home to you in these first couple of days as well. You can also keep up on things with me through the Remind 101 account that we have for the course, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second when I get to the course page. But you can use that in order to be able to see what text messages get sent out to the students, various different reminders in terms of delays to various assignments, should inclement weather happen, and things along those lines. Obviously, the course is revolving around an AP exam that is going to be taken at the beginning of May, so it'll be towards the very tail end of the school year, and that's the entirety of what this course revolves around. So, as such, then, the expectations will be what we call AP level. They will use an AP level textbook, so it's a college level textbook, and they'll be held to college level standards. So that means in many ways, right off the bat, they're going to have their student materials as quickly as possible. And we very heavily emphasize organization in this class. It is something that many students often struggle with, but it is an expectation that many college professors hold of their students from day one as soon as they walk into that class. So we really try to push our kids to be organized and stay on top of things right from the get-go. And that means having all of their materials and having them on the day that they're due and bringing them with them every day. It will be rare, if ever, that I won't expect students to have their binders with them from day to day in this class. In terms of the content, it's just important to recognize that we look at a variety of things when it comes to students' grades. As I shared with the organization, they do have binder checks at the end of every unit. That shows me that they're keeping up on their work and staying on top of things on their own, because again, one of the big responsibilities that students have is being on top of their own work. It is rare, if ever, that they receive consistent reminders on things from me, simply because we put everything out there for them at the very beginning of the school year, and I'll show you that in a second. So it really is their responsibility to stay on top of their work and to be their own advocate, as we like to say. So we have binder checks, we have reading guides. They will be responsible for doing college level reading. We space these out over time. They don't have to do a full chapter, within like a 2-week period. We schedule it out for students, and again, I'll show you that on the calendar. They're also expected to do notes, but this is a little different than has been traditionally the case for many AP classes. We are what we call a flipped classroom. So students actually do their notes for me as homework at home. I videotape myself providing those lectures. So while I'm not in the classroom with students at the beginning of this school year, they're still going to become very familiar with me, and I'm still going to be teaching them through a virtual classroom setup in many ways. And so they do that at home. They bring it into me or to Ms. Vandegrift, and then they are going to be assessed on those as they go through. So it's actually more homework. I love this setup purely because it enables us to do so many different activities to extend the learning when they're in the classroom. And so it makes it possible for those who struggle with the notes portion of things to obtain some clarification and some feedback from me in order to better understand what it is that they're doing. And so it's not a stereotypical 45-minute lecture type of scenario for students that many are used to in an AP setup. We also do topic quizzes that are going to be my way of assessing are students following along and are they understanding what they're doing from those notes at home. So that way I can provide kind of immediate feedback for them if they're struggling, so that way they don't continue to move through a unit and not understand what they're working through. And then we have vocabulary, by far the most significant piece to this. Many former students often jokingly refer to the AP psychology exam as a glorified vocab test. Vocabulary is so significant to this course, and if students don't take it seriously, they really struggle on that AP exam in May. So we push the kids to know all 770 plus vocab terms that are going to be on that fair game, on that exam, and so that requires them to have to stay on top of it. We take it for a grade to ensure that they know what they're talking about, not only the definition itself, but they're also asked to take a scenario where they give examples as well. So it enables me to see that they are really processing through that content rather than just copying and pasting it from a textbook or from the notes. So again, it provides a means of assessing them and making sure that if they are confused on something, we can provide immediate feedback along the way. Unit tests are the big component to this course. It is, after all, created for a test. So we offer tests in miniature, so to speak, for the AP exam. They are microcosms, if you will. There are 25 minutes to complete 40 multiple choice questions, and then there are 20 minutes for students to complete a free response question that pushes them to apply the vocabulary that they've learned. So again, that's why that vocab content is so critical. This is a smaller portion of the AP exam, which is 100 multiple choice questions and then 2 free response questions. We are very emphatic about timing our students and making sure that they get used to timed testing, because that's how it will be on the AP exam. So we really try to work with them on that skill set, and we move them through that throughout the year. It's not just a baptism by fire, so to speak. We'll build them up to being able to handle that 25 minutes and 20 minutes respectively for each portion of the test. So that way, once they get to the AP exam in May, they're comfortable with that kind of structure. We also have exams that we take throughout the year in order to help the kids, again, get to that cumulative assessment for the end of the year for the AP exam, since everything is fair game. And then once we hit roughly the tail end of March, we will spend the remainder of the course up until the AP exam reviewing for that test. So we really try to make sure that we do everything that we can for our students to be successful in the AP psychology exam. And we have a very strong history of doing so. Our overall average, roughly year in, year out, is an 80% success rate for our students in earning a 3 or higher on that AP exam. So we are very well structured to make sure that our students are successful in here. It's also of note to send out to parents that psychology is considered to be a general education requirement for the vast majority of colleges and universities across the country. So we love recommending to our students that even if they don't intend on taking psychology as a major in college, that they still stick with this class and take the AP exam in May, because it is a general ed requirement. So if they pass the exam with a 3 or higher, they exempt themselves from that course in college. So it saves them on tuition, and it frees up their opportunity to be able to take another class for a major that they are interested in pursuing. Grading is pretty straightforward for the most part. Our tests are worth 90 points, so they are a very significant chunk. Students who struggle on tests, initially they will struggle in here. That's not to say that they won't be able to be successful, but many students fail to recognize the significance of testing, because in other courses they've been able to use class content to boost their grade and to kind of keep them afloat. And that's not necessarily how we do things here. It's not to make it more difficult for students who are, who struggle with test anxiety or things along those lines. It's to make them recognize the significance of that AP exam in May, that you can never take anything for granted when it comes to a unit test. Every single one of them is incredibly significant. We offer plenty of opportunities in terms of remediation for students who need boosting on testing skills, because testing is a skill. I share that with students every year. That's not something that they're just born capable of doing. It's no different than learning how to ride a bike or driving a car. It's a skill that we help them to develop, but it is very significant in terms of its point total for the course. We have our binder checks, vocab quizzes, and checks on their vocabulary as they're moving through the unit. And then we have the topic quizzes and then various different other class assignments. For example, you'll see a project coming home with students in Unit 3 called Brain Mobiles, where they have to break down the various different structures and functions of the brain to be able to better understand it. In terms of late work, and this is something that I often try to emphasize to parents because, again, this is a college level course and it's a bit of an adjustment for high school students. We do not accept late work for reading guides and notes, since they're considered to be daily assignments and they're spelled out in the course calendar that I'll show you in a little bit. It is absolutely expected that students stay on top of that, and if it's not done on its due date, it does not receive credit. There are some students who will struggle with that initially, but I have rarely, if ever, encountered a student who has not been able to learn to adjust to that time management skill set and expectation and be able to still thrive in here, even though initially it might feel like a lot of work and a little overwhelming. When we have certain projects and other assignments that take longer periods and that have higher point totals attached to them, that will involve a 20% deduction for every day that it's late. So, for example, in Unit 4, students are expected to do a written piece on whether sensation or perception is most significant to human behavior and thought processes. That assignment has a pretty significant attachment to it in terms of points, so it would receive the 20% point deduction attached to it. With reading guides and vocab and notes, those are smaller point totals, so we don't necessarily do a late penalty to anything that involves a stamp. In terms of, pardon me, I'm going to pull this back down. The other significance in terms of grading is absence. I cannot stress enough that the students who struggle the most in this course, it's because they're routinely absent and they don't keep up on their work while they're absent. Everything is available to our students online, and I'm going to point that out on our course Moodle page. So you'll see here I have the course calendar and it is embedded into the page, so that way students have access to it for anything. And I have this for every one of my courses that I teach, and I'll take these off so that way you can see only AP Psychology content. This is everything that students are going to be provided with in terms of in-class activities, what their homework is, what I'm expecting from them. They have this available to them and it goes through the entire year. So I'll pull this out and you can see they have fair availability to everything that we're going to be covering in class from day one all the way to the very bitter end in the last day of school. So we really push our students to make sure that they're on top of things. So they're not going to get reminders from me in class or from Ms. Vandergriff in class, because the expectation is they have it available to them. They need to be the ones that are on top of that. So you can have access to this as well in terms of accessing this course page. All you need is your student's student ID number and then their school password that they've been issued from the beginning of the year, and you have full access to this website. So you can see the course calendar, and you also can sign up for our Remind 101 account, which involves messages and texts that I send to students and reminders if I feel like we need to make an adjustment to things. If students seem to be struggling with a particular topic, I can text them and say, hey, we're going to make an adjustment on this, so hold off on doing this reading guide section, this set of notes. So you can subscribe to this as well. This information was being sent home with students on day one, so you have access to this and you're more than welcome to sign up for it if you are so inclined. We also have all of the content that students are going to need to have access to. So one of the things that I like to point out to parents as well is the daily agenda. With absence, often what students have a tendency to kind of fall back on is, well, I didn't know what we were covering because I wasn't here. With technology being what it is in this day and age, it is most certainly a blessing in that students don't have the higher likelihood of falling behind in a course. And since we move so quickly and we go at a college level pace, every unit is roughly a week and a half. So that's very, very, very quick to cover the amount of content that we have to cover. Students have the access and the availability to look at this daily agenda and see exactly what it is that we're covering in class while they're gone. And so they can keep up on it as well. And that is the expectation, that while they're gone, they keep up on the work that they have missed, especially if it's absences that they're aware of for various different appointments or for field trips or things along those lines. So absence really is a killer for this course because we move so quickly. So I cannot stress it enough that responsibility is on the student. They are expected to turn in any work that they've missed the day they return, and that is a little different than what most courses expect. Some will give them the opportunity to have as many days as they were absent to make it up. And if there's an extensive absence where a student has been gone for a very significant period, I am absolutely more than happy to work with that student to make sure that we can get them caught up. But if it's a day or two, the student is expected to have that work ready and available because that is the expectation in a college level course. So if a student is out on a Monday and a Tuesday and they come back on Wednesday, they are expected to have the work from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday ready to go. So it is a high expectation, but it is one that students routinely are able to meet as they learn to develop those time management skills. Okay. So I often point that out to parents just so that way they're aware of this expectation and so they're not wondering what's happening with their student falling behind. We really push our students to make sure that they never fall behind because it is so difficult to recover when that does happen for many of our students. Something else that I would also like to note in terms of the absence is testing procedures. If a student is absent on a test, they're expected to make it up the day that they come back, and they will take a different form of the test. It's not going to be the same thing. I have often had issues with students who, unfortunately, they don't feel that they're prepared, and so they will be absent on the day of the test, and they'll try to use that as an opportunity to gain an extra day to study. They're going to take a completely different test from what the crew does during the actual testing assignment because it's not fair to that group who's tested to have to continually wait until I'm able to grade a student who's absent their test. And it's not fair to your student either because they're not really being tested on their knowledge. They can easily hear from students who have taken it to hear what the test questions are and things along those lines, and that doesn't benefit them in terms of preparation for the AP exam. So we really try to keep that kind of out of the wayside for students. So they will take a different form of the test. It'll still be over the same content. And as I shared earlier, there's always an opportunity up to the second quarter to be able to retake a test. So they get another form of a test to be able to assess their understanding of their content, and they can improve their score that way if necessary. Some other things just to share with you are just my final thoughts. I know this has been a little bit of an involved video, and I really, really appreciate you taking the time to listen and to watch this and to connect with me in this way. This is going to be a challenging class for your student. They will come home and they will be frustrated and they will feel overwhelmed. It happens every year. I will routinely have students who will come in and they will come to me and they will say, I don't think this class is for me and I think I need to drop. I'm going to beg your indulgence and ask you to encourage your student to stick with this class. As I shared earlier, 80% of our students earn a 3 or higher on that exam, and that's a phenomenally high success rate. It is rare, if ever, that I hear students who have stuck with this course, taken that test, and said, I wish that I had not spent the time in this course. Many of them will realize the benefits of this class once they get to college, not only with the credit that they earn from passing the test, but also with the skill set that they've developed because of the class. It's not pleasant moving through it. It's very overwhelming for them, but I tell them all the time, I am more than happy to be there in any way that I can to support them. I offer before and after school review sessions for tests. I'm in to school very early in the mornings, and I'm willing to stay in the afternoons as well. I'm always available to students in terms of email and through Remind as well. I've often had students text me and say, I am not following on this particular set of notes. Can you clarify this concept for me? I am more than happy to help your student in any way, shape that I can to ensure that they're going to be successful. But they have to be the ones that let me know that they're struggling. They have to be their own advocate And it's very difficult at times for a teacher to be able to recognize what's the difference between a student who is really struggling and what's a student who is just not engaged in the content. And there's a very big difference on that. So while this class will be challenging and difficult, I encourage you to really push your student to stick along with this class. You will receive parent newsletters from myself and from Ms. Vandegrift each month, so that way you can be keyed in on what it is that we're doing and how we're progressing, and even some tips that I can provide to you on how you can be a support to your child. You will find that as we move through the course, many of them will probably start to use psychological concepts on you. And that's when you know that they're really connecting with this content, that they're really taking it in, understanding it, processing it, and using it. And so once they start getting to that point, it will really feel rewarding for them and feel like all of the work that they're doing is worth it. I thank you for your willingness to sit and to watch me talk at you for the past 20 minutes or so. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to contact Grace Vandegrift, or if you have something that is really, really pressing, you're more than welcome to contact me. But I look forward to reconnecting with you in November, and I look forward to all of the wonderful things that are going to happen this school year. And I appreciate it again that you were willing to watch this video.